was removed. He went into exile for 3 years, and during that time there was a shift between Bush Sr., the George W.'s father, and Clinton. Bill Clinton came in. And Bill Clinton tried something new. He said, okay, this time, instead of just letting him go, and he couldn't really do it because there was just a tremendous resistance which wouldn't die. The people kept going. So he said, you know, we're going to have to bring Aristide back. But they brought him back not so much to finish the coup and stop the coup, but as really to stop a revolution that was building in the country. And Aristide was brought back as a prisoner of sorts to put in place an American agenda, which was to privatize state industries, principally lower tariff barriers, etc. The tactic that Aristide used, and Aristide too was a great student of and disciple of Toussaint Louverture, was a form of resistance called marronage. Marronage means, it's not like Fidel Castro or Hugo Chavez who stand up to the US and say, no, we're not going to do that. It's where you say, okay, I'll do that, but you don't really mean it, and you sort of subvert it later on. Anyway, that's what he did. He started to subvert the program that the US brought him back to execute, and they quickly said, okay, enough of this guy. They put him out, and they brought in his successor, René Préval. He began to carry out some of these reforms that the US wanted, but in 2000, Aristide was back. You can run twice under the present Constitution. And by this time, he came in just about the same time as George W. Bush came in. And Bush, at the head of a neoconservative cabal, saw that Aristide was one of the first people that had to go. And they immediately set about with a very extensive destabilization campaign, which involved an economic embargo, involved a diplomatic destabilization. They set up Contras in the Dominican Republic, which came across and wrought havoc. And eventually, on February 29th, 2004, a US Navy SEAL team, which had been waiting on the island of Navaz, just off the coast, came in. They took Aristide from his home, they put him on a plane, they flew him to the Central African Republic in Africa. And they installed a puppet government, a guy who had been a radio host in Boca Raton, and another coup took place, and an occupation began, the second occupation. I forgot to mention that the US occupation that brought Aristide back in '94 went through about 1999, about 5 years. So here they were again, now 5 years later, back occupying Haiti. They handed that occupation off, the US, Canadians, and French, which collaborated in Aristide's overthrow in 2004, to the United Nations, which is, that's how it works. The US comes in, does the heavy lifting, and then it's given to usually a kind of a consortium. This one is headed by Brazil, of various countries, everybody from Sri Lanka, the Philippines, to a number of Latin American countries. And that is what has essentially been ruling Haiti until today. I know my short remarks have extended a little long, but it is a lot of ground just to cover to set us up. Préval, who'd been the successor of Aristide in 1995 and took power in '96, again became a successor in 2006. The people elected him because they thought he would bring back Aristide, principally, and turn back the coup and do some of Aristide's policies, which were democratic and nationalist. But Préval did not do that. He really betrayed that vote. And in fact, in recent weeks, the weeks just before the earthquake of January 12th, began to really ride roughshod over Aristide's party, which was still the most popular in Haiti. Aristide remained in exile in South Africa, despite Preval's election, despite Barack Obama's election. He was still, there was no effort or green lights for him to come back. They wanted him on ice in South Africa, out of Haiti, out of the hemisphere. That was the words of Rumsfeld. We don't want him in the hemisphere, and Condoleezza Rice. So he was in South Africa, stuck there, essentially a prisoner. And his party began to try to run for seats, but they were disqualified in election after election last year. And finally, there was a very fast-track election announced in November, and it was supposed to take place 3 days from now, on February 28th. They were supposed to elect most of the rest of the parliament. And essentially, Preval had it in the bag. He had all the candidates, he had all the money, he disqualified the Lavalas family party, which was the only real competitor he could have. He'd bought off a lot of the Lavalas family leaders. And then the earthquake hit. And it hit hard. It hit right at the heart of Haiti, in Port-au-Prince. And Haiti had been centralized during the Marine occupation and during the Duvalier years in Port-au-Prince. Everything was there. And everything is now gone. The palace is gone. The cathedral is gone. Most of the churches are gone. Most of the ministries are gone. It's all gone. Records, 200 years of history. It is a calamity. And people are still trying to crawl out of it today, 6 weeks later. It is hard to find a Haitian family which didn't lose somebody or didn't lose their house. It is mind-boggling. It's hard for us here in the United States to imagine the suffering that the people are going through. And yet, the resilience is the only thing that's more amazing. This past week that I spent in Haiti, I mean, I've worked now practically since I got out of Hotchkiss around Haiti. And I was awestruck to see how this people could come back in the face of such adversity. Scavenging for copper wire or for steel rebar, for aluminum from the rubble of buildings in an effort to survive. And that's where we are now, in that effort to survive. The U.S. has come with 20,000 soldiers. I've heard it's been reduced now to 13,000. But you see them patrolling the streets now, along with the UN and the French and the Canadians, with their guns, pointing them at people crawling out of rubble. It makes no sense. And the people say that. They say, we don't need people coming with M16s. We need people to come with shovels. That's what one man told me 3 days ago in the streets of Port-au-Prince. We need people with shovels. And there are a lot of people coming. The first week I was down there with Democracy Now!, we stayed at a house, and a bunch of doctors from Denver. They were so moved. They got their money together, they chartered a plane, and they flew in. And the night we arrived, they were amputating a guy's leg on the kitchen table. No anesthesia, but it was the only thing that was going to save the guy's life. And they saved his life. People moved just out of human love. And that's, I could say, the secret of Haiti, is that its heroism moves people. So that is what the fight is. It's about that. And that's what the U.S. today, landing its troops in the Minister with their troops, are trying to stop. So I think I'll stop it there and take questions. answer. Yes, I think reparations that is what Haiti has asked for. Because there are reparations due not just from France, but from the U.S. The U.S., when it came in with its occupation in 1915, it essentially seized all Haiti's gold from the bank and transferred it to the First National City Bank, what is today Citibank. It was robbery. It was just straight out state robbery. And then they proceeded to enslave about 10,000 people in corvées and put them to work building roads, which were essentially to service U.S. plantations. And the apologists for that history will say, well, you know, we built the roads, and we built the palace, and we built this and that. But every dictator points to the beautiful infrastructure he makes, or she, and it is a very strong case, particularly in the case of France. I spoke to Ira Kurzban, who was the lawyer who basically was putting together this reparations, and this wasn't a symbolic thing. They really had international law. They had it nailed, and they would have really, in the world court, they would have really had France on the ropes. And France was very concerned about this. They not only tried to bribe people to not bring this case, but they even sent in a team to go and steal documents and this kind of thing. Now the case with the U.S. might be a little harder, but same thing could be made. You know, but it was total violation even of international law at the time, and certainly today. So yeah, I think that the kind of aid that should be given is similar to what you see the neighbors of Haiti doing. In the 2 days after the quake, the first people to arrive were the Cubans, the Venezuelans, and the Chinese. The Chinese, from halfway around the world, were able to get a search and rescue team on the ground faster than the U.S. could, 600 miles away. So the kind of aid you need is disinterested aid. If you're going to bring aid, bring aid. But the fact is there's billions and billions of dollars of reparations owed. And not just Haiti, but a lot. And in fact, a lot of the wealth that has made us a superpower is precisely due to what we've taken from countries like Haiti. I think what Hotchkiss did for me, and maybe to some extent the times that I lived in, which were a time of great social upheaval and rebellion, we can say, in this country. The Vietnam War was going, and there was a great deal of questioning of what our nation really was and where it was going. And I think that made me really question where that privilege that I was able to have came from. And it's hard to live when you know. And I think at one point or another, we all know. And then you have a choice. You know, do you remain a happy idiot, or do you engage? And that's the choice. So it's a sacrifice, it's for sure, because it's not easy at all. That's why they call it the struggle, because it is really hard to fight against a system which is so pervasive and so strong. And particularly in the case of Haiti, you have very little, I mean, you're up against all odds. But this is the story of Haiti. I mean, you have to think it broke the chains of slavery and colonialism, not at its weakest link, but at its strongest link, against Napoleon's armies. They beat them. So, you know, you sometimes just have to rerun those historical lessons through your mind to say, yes, this isn't insane, keep going. So, yeah. When the mainstream press came in there, and this is a big part of the control, in this country is through the press. And I have to say that CNN did a better job than usual, but nonetheless fell into some pitfalls along the way. But the picture they put was that, wow, these people, they're going to riot. It's going to be bad. They're going to be, you know, they're going to be tearing each other